but the difficulties of doing a joint service between live and on computer as well. So once again, thank you everyone for joining us. And I'm going to give my Dharma message now. And I'm going to begin by reading a passage from the Seiten, from Shinran Shonin's writings. This actually comes at the beginning of his writing of the true teaching, practice, and enlightenment of the Pure Land Way. Hard to encounter, even in many lifetimes, is the decisive cause of birth, Amida's primal vow. Hard to realize, even in myriads of kalpas, is pure Shinjin that is true and real. If you should come to realize this practice in Shinjin, rejoice at the conditions from the distant past that have brought it about. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo. So it's very nice to see all of you here this morning in person, and also, of course, the people on Zoom as well. But, you know, because we started, this is actually the first, well, it's actually the second. I had one memorial service yesterday. But yesterday morning, there was a group of about 25 of us who came out to help clean up the temple. As you can see, we are undergoing major renovations here. And as part of that, if you were here on Friday, it was still a construction zone. Like the lobby was filled with stuff. And we had to move it all, clean it all up so that you could come here today and it feels like a clean temple, right? And I think the 25 or so members who came out to help, volunteered to help clean yesterday, they were also happy to be able to come out, just to be able to come out and see other people. And I'm sure you probably felt that same way this morning as you came out here and saw others here this morning. And, you know, this coming together as a group, whether it be on Zoom, whether it be in person, over the past year and a half, we've encountered so much difficulties because of the pandemic. Of course, the loss of many, many lives because of the pandemic. Yet at the same time, also in our daily life, we've had to incur a lot of difficulties. And so over that time, I think all of us have become more reflective in the way we think about things. And the Shotsuki Monthly Memorial is a wonderful opportunity for us to reflect. It is a time, of course, when we come to remember our loved ones who passed on during this month of June. But at the same time, it is through them that they have brought us here so that we can listen again to the Dharma. And, you know, so I'd like to share, actually, one of my favorite tales that comes from the sutra. And the Dharma School kids have, I think, heard me give this tale, but I think you will find it interesting as well. So this happened many centuries ago, just around the time of the Buddha. And there was a farmer who wasn't quite up to snuff up here, but he had his field of wheat, and it was okay. It wasn't anything spectacular. But one fall, he had the opportunity to go to a neighboring kingdom. And when he was on his journey, he came across a farmland that was golden. The wheat was shimmering gold. He'd never seen the crop as beautiful as this. So he thought to himself, I need to find out the secret of how that farmer was able to produce such beautiful crop. So he went and he sought out the farmer. And once he found him, he asked him, please share with me, how do you make your crop so beautiful? And the farmer said, well, you have to plant your seeds. And the farmer who was trying to learn, he thought, well, that's obvious. And then the farmer says, well, then you need to make sure you water it properly and fertilize it. And he said, okay, I do all those things. He says, those things are all the same things I do. So what's the difference? And then the other farmer said, the most important part is when you're planting the seeds, make sure you don't step on where you planted. And so he thought, there's something I haven't been really mindful of. When I plant the seeds, I didn't really take care of where I was stepping. So this was the fall. So he had all winter to think about how he was going to do it. And over the winter, he came up with a plan that he thought was just so ingenious. And so early in the spring, he hired 4 of the strongest young men who were in the village, and he had a piece of wood, large piece of wood, and he had little handles coming out the sides of the wood. And he had the 4 of them, and he had a chair set up right in the center of that board. And he had the 4 young men carry him, right? And as they carried him, he got the seeds and he sprinkled it. And the 4 young men were trotting through the field, okay? So from this, you can understand, and he was so happy, he didn't step a foot in the field, he thought, right? But instead of 1 person, now you have 4 people trampling all over, right? So this is a tale that's told in one of the sutras, and it tells us about how our calculating mind can sometimes get in the way, right? So going back to the analogy of a farmer, what makes a good farmer? Is it the farmer that produces the crop, or is it because there's a crop that there's a farmer? It's actually a multitude of causes and conditions that creates a good farmer. Sure, part of it is the ability of the farmer. Part of it is, of course, the climate, good weather. You could have one terrible storm and that could wipe out a whole crop, right? So part of it is having good conditions, and also a lot of it has to do with the weed itself, right? So all these positive conditions come in to creating a good crop. Listening to the Dharma is very similar. Yes, you need somebody who's standing in front of you, talking to you, telling you the teachings, but I also need you to be listening to the teachings. But most importantly, what we need is what we call the voice of Amida Buddha. So when you think about our history, here in Steveston, the first temple was built in 1928. In Vancouver, the first temple was erected in 1905. So there's a span of 23 years that the Vancouver temple was there, but there wasn't a temple here. And during that period in Steveston, it wasn't that they didn't gather. First, what they did was there were a couple of members who actually purchased sort of like a home altar, Butsudan, and they modified it so that they put straps on it, and they actually used to carry the Butsudan from home to home to do service. So different families would host it, and they would carry that altar. Okay? And then a little later on, there was the Atagi. Is it a grocery store? What was the Atagi store? So I guess an all-purpose store that was in Steveston. So they actually use the second floor of the Atagi store as the gathering place. So for a number of years, they gathered on the second floor of the Atagi store. And all this dedication had to be there for us to be here today, right? And all that dedication, you wonder, what was it that brought those people together? And it was the teachings, it was the Dharma. And so Shinran Shonin, in the beginning of his writing, as I mentioned at the beginning, he said, hard to encounter, even in many lifetimes, is the decisive cause of birth, Amida's universal vow. What is Amida's universal vow? Amida's universal vow is the calling voice of the universe, saying that we are all one. And that by receiving this voice, reciting the name of the Buddha, we are embraced in a greater compassion. Okay? And so, without too much calculation of our own mind, but receiving naturally the teachings, receiving naturally the feelings that we get when we enter the Hondo, being able to come out and put our hands together, being able to recite Namo Amida Butsu together. It is a very powerful activity. I'm sure for those of you who are here, it's you probably felt how nice it is to be able to chant, hear others chanting together. That's one of the drawbacks of Zoom, is that you can only hear the one. I mute everybody else. Otherwise, it sounds terrible if you have a number of people chanting together on Zoom. But here in person, we have that ability. And so we come here to listen to the calling voice of the Buddha. And those who passed before us, they are part of that calling voice, reminding us what is truly important in life. And over this course of the year and a half during the pandemic, all of us have had to reflect and realize, yes, we do need this oneness, this compassion. And as part of that, we put our hands together in gratitude to say thank you. Namo Amida Butsu. So at this time, I'd like to ask you again, please join me in Gasho as we recite the name of the Buddha. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namandos. 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 Thank you, everyone. This will conclude the Shotsuki service for June. And for those of you who are on Zoom, if you want to unmute yourself, you may do so now.